Good evening, everyone. Okay, I'm gonna try this thing with this stand here. Well, I have a disclosure first, the small print that I want to share. This story contains offensive words. Offensive words. Please keep in mind it is used for historical context. So, in the age of cancel culture, make sure I have my small print. As she said, my name is Jerlene Tatum. I spent some time with my grandparents raised in the Ozark Mountains. And lately, a lot of the stories about my childhood have just been flowing through my head. And I was recently having a conversation with my children about the N-word. Y'all know what the N-word is?
Yeah.
I'm not talking about nachos either. So the N-word. I was sharing with my children my first encounter with the N-word. I'm gonna tell you what it is just in case you don't know. So I went to an elementary school in the town of Clinton, Arkansas. I think I was in either the first or the second grade. It had to have been the first grade because my cousins lived with us in the second grade. So in the first grade, the school was near a poultry farm. Now, I can still smell it today. Like when we were on the playground on a hot day, you could smell the smell of the chicken manure, and it was horrible. But anyway, on the playground playing one day, a little boy comes up to me and he says, "You're a nigger." Now, I had never heard this word outside of hearing Richard Pryor say it in stand-up comedy. And at 6, 7 years old, I had no business listening to Richard Pryor stand-up comedy. So anyway, I just knew it was bad. I just knew it was bad, and I could smell, the smell of the poultry farm, and this little boy telling me what he thinks I am. And I go home to my grandmother. My grandmother had no sense of humor. She did not drink alcohol. She was 4'11". She was mean as hell. And I'm upset and crying, and I tell her what this little boy said to me. And my grandmother, she wasn't wearing her wig that day, and she probably had on her little house gown, her house dress, if y'all remember me telling the story last time. And she looks at me and she says, "Next time that little boy says that to you, you say to him, 'If I'm a nigger, you're a trigger. Bite my butt and make it bigger.'" I went from crying to laughing. First of all, my grandmother gave me the permission to say butt. If you're familiar with the country, we lived in the country next to the woods. If you went in the woods, you would come back with triggers or mites. You either came back with ticks. I always came back with ticks, and my grandmother had to check all my crevices to make sure that I didn't have ticks on me. But my grandmother, she said something that was funny. She gave me permission to use some words. I went to school. Now again, I'm in the country in the 80s. They paddled children in the 80s in the country. The little boy does it again. So my sassy self, did I mention I was the only black child in the entire school? I didn't mention that part. I was the only black child in the entire elementary school of Clinton, Arkansas. And he said it again. And I said back to him, "If I'm a nigger, you're a trigger. Bite my butt and make it bigger." Guess who got paddled that day? I sure did. I got paddled, and I had never been so proud to go home to tell my grandma that I got paddling that day. Now, I later learned the mountain that we lived on, because we actually lived on a mountain, population 731, had been called the N Mountain because it was the mountain, or it was the area where the black people in the town lived. The Tatums, the Jacksons, the Martins, and the Washingtons, and somehow we were all related to each other. So again, I was just sharing this story with my children, and the impact that word had on me at that time. And mind you, I had never been called that word again until I worked in corporate America.
Wow.
If you find it offensive, imagine how I felt.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh, wow.
Thank you.